Hello, my friends, in the Midnight Question channel. It is a channel specialized in entertaining, strange, and interesting questions. If you have a question, write it in the comments, and we will share the answer to it in a video. If you are watching us for the first time, do not forget to subscribe and activate the bell to receive all new.
When we come to study an animal, we always see that every animal living in a particular environment is a creature. In every way, he adapts to the environment in which he lives, and whoever has the ability to deal with this environment, no matter how difficult and impossible it is for humans. And that's why we always intrude on the animal world, in order to understand it more and know how their ability works and what we can benefit from, and put in it inventions that make our lives easier for us. One of the abilities that some animals are believed to possess is the ability to sense natural hazards before they happen, such as earthquakes and volcanoes. And we know that disasters will happen when they are salvation, or when they happen in the first place, and the truth will come to the pilgrim's goal. Although we want to develop devices that warn us of approaching disasters, these devices are also not as efficient as the required, and the simple animal senses these disasters before our devices, according to the words of eyewitnesses. The question here is, do you really think that animals can sense natural disasters? And if they were true, how did they start to feel them before they happened? On the morning of December 26, 2004 in Indonesia, the scene predicts a pleasant day, a suitable climate, the sun is shining, and calm prevails over the charming coasts of the Indian Ocean. With the accuracy of the clock exactly 7:59, calm turns into chaos, bad, and terror with an earthquake under the sea, which resulted from an earthquake measuring 9.1 degree and struck the Indian Ocean and caused a series of tsunamis, the wave height of which reached 9 meters and more.
These waves washed over the coasts, the beaches, the houses, the streets, and the people as well, not in Indonesia or the countries of the continent of Asia. However, the waves reached coastal areas far from the east of the continent of Africa, and after the end of the disaster and when people began to overcome and comprehend what happened. Official reports came out from every country, including the tsunami, explaining the occurrence, consequences, and losses. The total number of reports indicated the death of less than 225,000 people from 12 different countries. The strange thing about the subject and the controversy at the time was that some of the eyewitnesses who survived the disaster said strange words that were going around. The animals, especially the elephants that Indonesia is famous for, used to run wildly and a little strangely, and they made high places a few hours before the disaster. Even the birds were loose in their nests and distant birds, and the dogs were tense and made selections inside the houses, and even the locals were almost unanimous. A herd of buffaloes on the beach was looking at the sea with tense eyes, and then they fled towards the nearby hilltops, and this was a few days before the initial tsunami. Hence, people began to talk about the ability of animals to sense natural disasters, and he began to tell you. As for the behavior of animals before the tsunami occurred, but they expanded a little and began to compose stories and legends that scientists proved untrue. With the spread of rumors, researchers began to take serious steps in the study of history to see the behavior of animals before earthquakes occurred. On the other hand, they studied the reality of the march they knew. Do animals really have the ability to predict earthquakes, or are these words any hooks? The 2004 tsunami was not the only disaster of its kind, except that researchers researched the issue of animals and their behavior before disasters. There are many other disasters ranging from tsunamis to volcanic eruptions or earthquakes. All of them, animals of all kinds, showed unusual behaviors in them, and the subject, for example, was a new charge. Indeed, with research, we discovered that one of the Greek philosophers, who was Herodotus, recorded a similar incident in the year 373 BC, in which he reported that rats, dogs, and snakes abandoned the city of Hellas in the days preceding a catastrophic earthquake occurred, and of course the researchers did not write in history. And about more than once sleeping, they make sure of this by themselves. For example, in the year 2014, a group of Yemeni researchers made a very strange move. If they tracked the amount of milk produced by a group of cows on a farm. It is possible to find something strange about your subject, dead pandas, but the truth is a smart movement from them to a cow that produces milk in an amount almost every day, and any change that the cows feel at the speed of their daily activity, otherwise it is within the production of milk, which happened that before and isolated the ancestors of the region by about 3 weeks, the amount of milk that the cows had it produces significantly reduced due to stress. The studied research knows the cows from where it was known that there is an earthquake that occurs 3 full weeks before it, but at least they proved that there is a relationship between the two cases. This was not the only consequential study on this topic, the study that proved that animals have this ability. Many of the most famous of them are the studies of the Max Planck Behavioral Institute, in which it conducted experiments on cows, sheep, and dogs. In the lesson for the research, he put tracking lights that measure the speed of animals on a farm in Italy in the Marche region, which is prone to earthquakes, and the data that the lights had with their consequences for the researchers showed that after 20 hours of an earthquake in the region, the movement of the animals changed noticeably, and the closer the earthquake was, the more and more their behavior changed. The question that baffled scientists is the time limit that can sense the approaching natural disasters. Apple what you get. In a scientific way, those who understood this topic began to study the changes associated with the disasters themselves, and through them they concluded that animals can sense these disasters through the accompanying features. Some scientists have assumed that animals and birds can sense the vibrations that occur in the tectonic plates in the Earth's crust, so when the Earth's scourge shakes, it begins to move away from the place of vibration, or at least they begin to show strange behavior resulting from tension. However, despite this, there is no strong evidence and scientific perspective for it, but it is nevertheless taken into account in the scientific community. And there are also strong second assumptions, which is that animals can notice the changes in brightness that occur in the Earth's crust as a result of tremors, i.e. in the country, at the moment of cracks that occur in the Earth, and humans often do not notice them, except for the pressure resulting from the movement of tectonic plates by breaking the chemical bonds between minerals in the air or in the water, and thus the mist in the air is charged with electricity and the animals can sense the change. And because the breaking of the bonds between minerals changes the acidity of the water as well. So do frogs and amphibians in general, suddenly leave Germany and learn about the breeding period after an earthquake that occurs in about 8 days, because the skin of amphibians is not cold high and is greatly affected by the acidity of the water. And one of the animals that showed the most strange behavior before the earthquakes is mining, which used to come out in the height of the snow from its hiding places to the final degree. Sometimes it would die. At first, the scientists thought it was a suicide. But the truth is that this was a reaction to his sensing of them approaching a natural disaster, so they used to come out of the bunkers to meet them with snow and severe cold, and they would die. Education in particular is a door to feeling the approach of disasters from the waves and sounds that come from the inside of the Earth, such as electromagnetic waves, which are very sensitive to them. That is why researchers say that fatigue is the most sensitive animal to earthquakes, and you may also be surprised that insects can infer that a natural disaster is approaching. Studies have shown that single ants are highly sensitive to disasters and can detect the smallest changes in temperature and electromagnetic field. However, it senses changes in the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, which are all indications of an approaching natural disaster, hence the research began using ants to predict earthquakes. When he starts to feel the planes, he comes out of his burrow in an unnatural way and gathers in one row or in integrated groups, and goes to see another place to live in, but often the changes are beyond their capacity, and that is why a large number of ants begin to die. When researchers see this, they know that an earthquake is about to hit the area. With the difficulty of predicting earthquakes and the failure of some countries to install warning devices, a question arises. Can we take advantage of all these animals and signs that we are preparing for natural disasters? In the year 2020, a research paper was published by a group of German and Russian scientists, in which they suggested that, based on research, Apple did such and such, some of which we mentioned, that they can track a large number of animals, reptiles, and birds in different earthquake zones around the world, and use computer algorithms to analyze their movement patterns, and thus the necessity for news of natural disasters. Through the changes that occur in the behavior of animals, as if animals are alarm devices. Although the subject is complicated, difficult and costly, and it is really so, the project is compatible with it and it is working now. Movement data for thousands of animals around the world is collected by a next system on the International Space Station called Icarus. Although it is a little expensive and still under research, it is still a big step in the world of sensors.